During Christmas of 2005, I received as a gift from my dad Xbox 360. This was the follow-up to the OG Xbox, which I had gotten from Dad back in 2001 when it launched. And so there was something about the Xbox launches for these consoles that the games at launch for both the OG Xbox and the 360 really stand out to me, more so than a lot of the games in the entire library of Xbox and Xbox 360. And so I thought it would be cool to take a moment to look back at the launch of the console, specifically my top 10 favorite games that came out at launch for the 360. I got a number of these games when the system came out and in that launch window. And I will say there are going to be some Xbox Live Arcade games on this list. Hey, enough talking about it. Let's jump into number 10.
But first, a word about this video's sponsor, FlexiSpot. When I was a kid, our first computer sat on a desk that could best be described as functional. Luckily, today we have FlexiSpot. FlexiSpot desks are highly customizable and come in different sizes and colors. They sent me their E7 model, and it puts my older desks to shame. Apologies to my childhood. I've always wanted a standing desk, and this one moves from sitting to standing position smoothly and steadily. The solid-built carbon steel desk frame makes it rock solid. Its durability is incredible, and FlexiSpot offers a hassle-free 30-day return policy, 15 years warranty. It's wobble-free, so whenever you're typing or gaming, you can concentrate on what really matters, and it's capable of easily holding up to 355 pounds. The E7 model has a large height range from 22.8 inches to 48.4, and its retractable frame allows you to adjust the desktop width from 43.4 inches to 74.8. So whether your space is big or small, the E7 always fits your needs. It's built with its own cable management board under the desk. Oh, and the keypad panel has programmable memory presets, and there's a USB port on the side of the keypad to charge your devices. FlexiSpot desks are cheaper than other brands. They have their own factory and sell directly from it, cutting out the middleman to give you the best value. They've got a bunch of Black Friday deals going on right now, and you can take an extra $30 off by using my exclusive code.
Coming in at number 10, it's Perfect Dark Zero. Perfect Dark was one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games. Perfect Dark, while not a sequel to GoldenEye, was a spiritual successor, and man, did I love it. I really loved it, guys. It had a lot of charm. It just visually was stunning on the Nintendo 64. Well, Perfect Dark Zero on the Xbox 360, as much as I was excited and thrilled to get this game and the hype around a brand new Perfect Dark game, I just never really got into this game, guys. I got it at launch during that Christmas of 2005. It was one of the games that my dad got me, and I wanted to love this game so much. And it's not a bad game. It really isn't a bad game, but really, guys, it's just missing something. It's missing some sort of key ingredient that made the original game so special. I mean, when you're getting bored just playing through the first stage of the game, having to use these surveillance cameras and fly around, I really did not like flying around with that surveillance camera mode and having to take the pictures with it, and it really was not fun. And the first stage of a game like this is supposed to be one of the most memorable. It's supposed to be the stage that really hooks you, right? This game just never hooked me. I mean, compared to the original game, none of that charm and style, I feel like, translated over into the sequel. And I've got to be honest, I never actually beat this game. This is not one that I finished. I got some enjoyment out of it. I got some fun out of it, but overall, this one was really forgettable for me. And maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments why I should give this one a second chance. But Perfect Dark Zero, it's at the bottom of the list here. Coming in at number 9, it's Mutant Storm Reloaded. Now, this was one of the launch titles for the Xbox Live Arcade, on the 360. And man, I loved this game. I adored twin stick shooters before it became a buzz term. Twin stick shooters for me were games like Robotron and Smash TV. These were the games that really helped usher in the whole idea, the whole genre of a twin stick shooter. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's when you take either two joysticks on the old arcade machines and use them to move your character and shoot in any direction. When the 360 came out, they really made an attempt to popularize these games again on the Xbox Live Arcade with the use of the dual analog sticks. Mutant Storm Reloaded was a game that really did a fantastic job in doing it. There are a multitude of rooms or levels that you have to battle through, these minions, these hordes of enemies that keep coming at you. And the whole point in this game, and every twin stick shooter for that matter, is to just dodge, 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 shoot, shoot, shoot. Do your best to make your way, avoid the enemies, get the power-ups, and there's tons of strategy in these games. It's frantic, it's fast-paced, and it's strategic. And that's what always appealed to me about these games. And really, it was around this time with the Xbox 360 that me and my cousins, Manny and Mikey, started getting really competitive when it came to these Xbox Live Arcade games. And Manny, actually, he was at one point in the top 100 players in the entire world when it came to Mutant Storm Reloaded. This was one of his favorite Xbox Live Arcade games, and I used to love hearing about his accolades, his achievements in this game. I mean, he got every achievement you could possibly get, and he ranked so high on the leaderboards. This was one we were constantly talking about back and forth with each other about, trying to best each other's high score. Man, I didn't get anywhere near his high score, but it sure was a blast trying to. The next game on this list, number 8, is Condemned. Ooh, man. Man, when I got Condemned, this was a game that I really was frightened to play. And I'm just going to say this right here, guys. I never got very far in this game because it gave me so much anxiety just playing it. Condemned really kind of flipped the entire survival horror genre on its head. This game felt like the embodiment of a David Fincher gritty crime drama. Movies like Seven and Zodiac, I mean, this feels like a video game equivalent to those kind of films. It was so interesting. I remember buying it and seeing the Sega name on this very gritty, very adult game. This was one of those first games where the violence was so gritty and realistic, and everything about the game was so scary with these, killers jumping out of the shadows and stuff that this was so unsettling to me. And I think this was one of the first instances where video game violence was actually kind of getting a little over the top for me. And to this day, ultra-violent games just don't do it for me. And Condemned was one of those first ones, but I got to put this a little high on the list because it wowed me. This game really blew me away when it came out. The graphics were fantastic. Enemies lurking in the shadows, jumping out at you, exploring these abandoned locations and really trying to solve these crimes. This kind of like different mode you go into where it's like crime mode, and you're trying to figure out, what happened here, what was the murder that took place here. And it's really cool. Honestly, there's elements of this game that were later developed and taken from it and used in other games. And I think Condemned really inspired a lot of games that we play today. It's a really awesome game, and that's why it's here at the number 8 spot on this list. Coming in at number 7, it is Ridge Racer 6. Ridge Racer. Okay, Ridge Racer is one of my favorite arcade racing games. Back when it came out in 1995, I remember playing it in the arcade alongside Daytona USA and just being blown away by what they were able to do with 3D polygons and what Namco, the style and just arcade fun they were able to inject into this game and this series. When I saw that there was going to be a Ridge Racer at launch, it was exciting. It was like, okay, we got to get this. This is going to be our racing game at launch that we're going to love and enjoy. But I feel like some of the enjoyment of this title was stolen or perhaps eclipsed by other racing games that were coming out. I do want to say this is one of the best Ridge Racer games ever released. It really is robust. There's a huge story mode or campaign mode where you have to play through tons of races. There's a huge map filled with races that you get to basically navigate and choose your path. It's really cool. I like how they did that in this Ridge Racer. And of course, just like other games in the series, there are tons of cars to unlock. Ridge Racer just has such a fantastic style and feel to it. I think they went with a distinct look for this one where they just decided to desaturate some of those colors and give it kind of a cinematic look. And I think that was an attempt for Namco to bring Ridge Racer into more of a modern context. But the gameplay is still intact. It's fast-paced. It's probably one of the fastest racing games on the Xbox 360. And I really do enjoy the game. Coming in at number 6, it's Project Gotham Racing 3. Now, when I talked about Ridge Racer 6, I mentioned how there were more modern games that were kind of stealing the spotlight from Ridge Racer. Project Gotham Racing was the flagship racing series for the Xbox. It was a no-brainer. I knew that I wanted this game so bad. It was one of the games I wanted most for the Xbox 360 when it launched. Really, of the 3 Project Gotham Racing games, 3 is the best in the series, if you ask me. The thing is, the leap from Project Gotham 2 wasn't huge. It's not incredibly next-gen, but Project Gotham, it doesn't disappoint. It's such an addictive racing game. The kudos system of points where you earn more kudos as you race better. And for me, this always became such an addictive aspect of this series. And I loved playing this game online with people as well. It was a great online racing game for Xbox Live. And really, despite the lower frame rate, Project Gotham Racing 3 is a fantastic game. It was definitely a killer app title to own on the 360 when you first got the console. Definitely the best racing game at launch. At number 5, it's Peter Jackson's King Kong, the video game, or something to that extent. It has a very long title. This was a third-party adaptation of the Peter Jackson film, King Kong, which had come out earlier that year. It does such a good job at capturing the atmosphere of the film. I love how so much of the game doesn't have a HUD, and you're just walking around the jungle. It feels like a horror game in many aspects. In the game, you play as the Adrian Brody character, who is an actor in the film that Jack Black is making, the Jack Black character at least. And I love that Jack Black is featured in this game, in this third-party adaptation licensed game. Constantly, you'll hear Jack Black talking, and he's always talking around you, and so are the other characters in the game. And just visually, guys, this was one of the best looking Xbox 360 games at launch. There's a whole stage in the game that recreates that famous scene in the movie where Kong has to run after and rescue Naomi Watts from the hungry dinosaurs and the pterodactyls. And, it's really visually amazing, guys. And just the atmosphere that they've created here in this game. I loved it when I got it at launch. I never beat the game, I'm going to be honest. This is one I never beat. I found it pretty difficult, actually. I remember this movie quite fondly, and the game just felt like an extension of that movie. Quality, quality, quality. Great game. Underrated, if you ask me. People don't really talk about this, but it's really a fantastic licensed movie game. I mean, probably one of the best. Coming in at number 4, it's Amped 3. Now, this one is totally amped up from its predecessors. Amped 1 and 2 came out on the original Xbox, and this third game it just takes it to a completely different level. This is one of my favorite snowboarding games. What they've done here to really make this one stand out is just make it so crazy and absurd, some of the things that happen. There's a huge sense of freedom in Amped 3. Just every time you go down the mountain, you can take a different path and go a different way and do different tricks, experience new things. This has got to be one of the most trippy snowboarding games ever made. There are so many psychedelic and like just trippy elements. Just all these on-screen effects that come flying at you. It's very flower power. It's very hippie. And I love it. I think it's so cool and unique, and it gives this game such a sense of identity. It's so much fun. The fact that there is a story kind of woven into this game, along with just doing tricks and Tony Hawk type of flips and stuff like that. And 3, an incredible snowboarding game. So addictive and fun. Highly recommended. And really, I really encourage you to check this one out just because of how unique and different it is. At number 3, we have Call of Duty 2. Now, you had to know this was going to make it somewhere on this list. Call of Duty 2 was, in fact, the killer app for the system when it launched. Everybody was talking about this game and how great it ran on the 360. Call of Duty 2 was a huge runaway hit. Everybody was starving for a new first-person shooter. Halo 3 was still a ways away. It was not going to be a launch title on the system, so everybody looked to Call of Duty 2. And I don't think Call of Duty 2 ever hits the heights of the Halo series for me personally, but I really, really enjoyed Call of Duty 2. Like, it was a very tight game. The gameplay was tight. The controls were fantastic. In fact, this was a game I played like crazy at launch, and it was one of my favorite games that I owned on the 360. I didn't think that Call of Duty, this war game, was going to be better and be a statement kind of game for the console. We really thought that Perfect Dark Zero would take over for that, but it didn't live up to expectations, and instead, Call of Duty became one of the biggest franchises in gaming history. If you have not played this, and you own a 360, you got to have Call of Duty 2. It's a must-own on the console. Coming in at number 2, it's Cameo. Now, Cameo was the other launch title developed by Rare, which had newly been acquired by Microsoft. Rare, they had to come out with a big statement at launch. And really, Cameo, for a lot of people, I feel like it didn't live up to that huge statement that, you thought they would make. But I think it's a beautiful game. Really, honestly, it's one of my favorite games ever developed by Rare. In Cameo, you play as this really charming fairy creature that has mythical powers that allow her to transform into different creatures that have elemental powers. It's so much fun, so charming. And the thing I loved about this game was just the strategy involved with changing between the different creatures with the different elements and using those at certain times in the stages to get further. The entire overworld has this war going on, and you're just riding your horse through this giant battle, and really it took full advantage of the Xbox 360's capabilities. This was a next-gen killer app-looking game. All of the enemies on the screen, the amount of particle effects and different things flying at you all at once, all while keeping a very locked and secure frame rate. It was a game that made you want to keep coming back to it to find out what would happen next, find out what the next stage was going to look like, what new elemental creature you were going to unlock and have as a part of your team. Really, for me, it was my favorite launch title of the physical games released, the killer app games released by the big developers. This was my favorite one on the Xbox 360 at launch. Cameo is just beautiful through and through. It was one of those games that when I first got the 360, there was just a jaw-dropping component when it came to Cameo. It looked fabulous and it played incredible too. Coming in at number 1, it's Geometry Wars Retro Evolved. I wonder how many of you guessed this might be on the list. You probably didn't think it would be the number 1 game on the list, but it's true, guys. My favorite game that came out on the 360 at launch was an Xbox Live Arcade game. It wasn't one of the top dollar physical releases. No, it was this $5 Xbox Live Arcade game, and I think that just speaks to the brilliance of Geometry Wars. It's one of the most addictive and fun games I've played in my life. Here you have basically a twin stick shooter, similar to Mutant Storm, as I talked about earlier in this video, but Geometry Wars just brings it visually. I mean, there is so much chaos on the screen happening at all times, and you've got to keep your eyes glued to your character and where you're moving and where you're shooting. This was a game that ushered in that love of old school high scores. I mean, that's what Xbox Live became all about. And me and my cousins, we got so into it. We got competitive with it. It was so great to kind of capture that old school Atari feel of just, hey, I'm going to play this game, but not to beat it, not to complete a story or anything like that. No, I'm just going for the high score, and I'm going to have a blast while I do it. I sunk so many hours into this game, and me and my cousins were battling each other on the leaderboards. At one point, I was the best player of this game between my cousins and I. I was actually better than Manny and Mikey, and that was a rare thing for me to be better at a game than them, because Manny was the king of games and Mikey was like, right there with them as far as competition and being competitive. And I remember feeling so good knowing that like I actually could beat my cousins at a game. Like I was better than them at a game, at least for a while. I think they got really competitive when they learned I was getting really good at the game and actually beating them in the game. And I think they really decided we're going to take Tyler down. And they beat my high score at one point. But at one point, I had the top score. Geometry Wars gave us all of this hope for what Xbox Live Arcade was going to be like. And really, the 360 helped make retro gaming what it is today. I mean, you go back to 2005 and Xbox 360 helped lay the groundwork, place those bricks, build what is going to become our love and our foundation for what retro gaming is in 2023. And we have so much to thank Microsoft for when it comes to the Xbox Live Arcade, and Geometry Wars was one of my favorite games on the platform. Well, that about does it, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this video, taking a look at my top 10 favorite Xbox 360 launch titles that I got back in the day when the 360 first came out. Man, I have so many good memories of when that system launched, and it was just so much fun playing these games. And really, I remember when I think of the 360, I think of multiplayer. I played Xbox Live so much, and so many of the hours that I sunk into this console were done either in leaderboards, achievements, multiplayer, death matches in games like Halo. And oh man, it was just such a good time to connect with your family, your friends who are across the country. It was the leading technology for that sort of thing, and Xbox 360 did it better than so many others. I mean, Nintendo had to play catch up, and they still really aren't there. They still don't have the robustness with their online platform. After all these years, 360 did it best way back when, and I have such great memories of the whole thing. I do want to know, what are some of your favorite Xbox 360 launch titles? What games did you have at launch? What were your favorites? Please let me know in the comments below. And hey, if this is your first time to the channel, do consider subscribing. I love talking about my game crazy family and all of the amazing adventures we had with video games, so many of which were caught on tape by my dad. That's going to do it, guys. I'm Tyler. I'll catch you next time.